So there's a lot of talk about voice right now and how it can be used to create skills that might be useful. So is voice a one-size-fits-all proposition? Is it something that can work for everything, or is there certain things that it might be better for right now than others?
Absolutely it is not a one-size-fit-all. I think another thought is, while it is a new revolution, just like how we all saw everything's going to be mobile. It is another channel. It is another area, and it's an amazing channel. Don't get me wrong, and it's massive, but it doesn't mean that everyone's going to ignore the other aspects of your brand or your customer experience. It's just another powerful area where you can interact, and I almost think of it as a new dimension. And where it is there right now, some of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. I know you love those terms. But some of the easier applications are things like customer support for simple things. Looking at ways of making it easy to answer the common questions so someone doesn't have to wait online. It's also a way of making it easier for someone to either purchase something or to interact or to sign up for something like that. There's ways of interfacing through things like that. It's also just making things easier, how to use your product. Is there a timer? Is there some extension that makes sense where they can get that spoken to them and they can have a conversation with on a skill versus just being a one-dimensional chat type thing that happens on a website, or they have to wait. It's just a matter of making those touches easier and faster right now. I think there's a lot more to come. I've seen things with banks where they're figuring out ways that you can get to your information. There's a little more effort into that, and it's not as turnkey, but it's definitely going to be valuable. Gone are the days that people would have a siloed experience and be like, oh, well, that was the customer representative. You can see that very well is because Twitter has become like the number one place to have the airing of grievances. And by the way, companies have encouraged that because that's when they respond. So basically, your brand is everywhere. It's at every touch point, be it when someone pays their bill, to when they walk into, say, a brick and mortar or go online to your website, to now this new channel voice, which is where your brand is at and where it comes into the mix. It can be your best friend, or it can, if not thought out well, it can also harm. And that's where you have to think about, does this make sense? Is this appropriate? Or does this feel like a bolt-on? Because it can't be a bolt-on. It has to be interwoven into the fabric of your experience and how things work together. All companies have one big thing. They want to grow their business, right? They want to grow and they can either do that by improving the customer experience or increasing employee productivity. Remarkably, voice offers both. A lot of it is from a standpoint of right now that we're seeing is call avoidance. Improving the customer experience by providing that support. Well, a lot of the times when I'm talking to clients, why haven't you looked at retention? Oh my gosh, that's a lot of effort with a little ROI. I would argue those numbers, but sometimes it's just easier to let sleeping dogs lie for the moment. The reality is that voice offers you opportunities to keep your customer experience intact and still be able to provide support and pieces in an efficient manner in a way that we haven't seen before. It can be everything from the Butterball helpline to how do I install something, or to something from that perspective. You can be guided by all of the questions that come into your call center. You can even use your call center person. But ultimately, what it comes up down to is that one touch that on that phone call, you can expand that and apply it and make it accessible to multiple people using voice, which is very, very exciting versus someone having to find an 800 number, call in, and everything from that. There's ways that you can structure that to make that a much easier way to get to, I think, the phrase, where's the point and how do I get to it? This is a way of being able to do that. And those are both going to improve your experience and also improve employee productivity, which is fantastic. There's a lot of things that are coming out there that are going to be fairly easy to implement.
I was on a call this week and someone asked me, what is the best case that you've seen of voice being used? By far the best example that I've seen is the Butterball Turkey Hotline. And so from a business standpoint, what they did is they created an Alexa skill. They took 3 of their call center folks, answered 18 years worth of common questions, and figured out a way to map that to questions and put it on an Alexa device. So instead of needing to call the hotline, you could actually ask your Alexa device, what's the ideal cooking temperature, let's say, or how long do I need to do this, or whatever those common questions are. So from an organization standpoint, they didn't have as many people calling the call center. And then from a customer experience standpoint, I didn't need to wait on hold for 10, 15, 20 minutes during a stressful time because I just needed this answer and then I wanted to go on with my day. So it's by far the best example that I've seen of a great customer experience that also has a true business application. Ultimately, we need to start thinking about voice as a new channel in part of the overall marketing mix and part of the overall customer experience. So what would be one of the worst case scenarios is you start thinking of voice in a silo and not thinking about it as an entire piece or as a big piece of your overall experience with your brand.